Good morning, everybody, and welcome to this edition of Roll Call. Roll Call is where the police officers get up in the morning there and they go in front of their sergeant or lieutenant and they get their assignments for the day. This roll call, we go through the cases that you're following and the trials and the courts. And now we're going to remember that pop reference of the famous Hill Street Blues. Be careful out there. So that's what roll call is. Today, we have everyone's favorite retired detective, Mike Alcazar. Mike, welcome back to the Friday edition of Roll Call. Good to see you.
Good morning, Joe. Good morning, everybody. Busy day yesterday, huh?
Very busy day yesterday. A lot of really terrible things. When I had heard that it was bad coming out, now I understood what that adjective bad was. When cops tell you something's bad, it's bad.
It's bad.
And that's exactly what we got yesterday. So I do have Nightbot on patrol today. I upped up his amp a little bit. So just everyone, please be respectful. Try not to put anything in there that is just pure conjecture or anything that's crazy. And the mods, please be on the lookout of anybody saying anything really awful. Just do your thing, mods. Right. So if you have that wrench, wield it, because we don't need to have people coming in here and saying really terrible things. This case is terrible enough. But so here, Maria's already starting out on us over here. Says Maria Z says, I'm from Bensonhurst, Brooklyn girl, and have no accent. Love your accent. Reminds me of home. Well, welcome, Maria.
So where is she now? She's from Bensonhurst.
Tell us.
Hey, everybody. I know. Yeah, go, Joe.
No, go ahead, Mike. Go ahead.
I was going to say everybody, because there's a lot more people coming in. Put your location where you are. And if you have like a wonky name, like I like donuts, put your first name too, so we know who you guys are.
Yeah.
And I do like donuts.
Both of us do. Yum Yum's pretty good.
Yum Yum. Do they have that everywhere, or is that just local to us?
I don't know.
Because I just discovered that. I was like, what? What is this?
So, Mike, yesterday, I think, I'm not going to speak for yourself, but I was quite floored by the amount of information that they released yesterday and the amount of evidence that is stacking up against Rex Heuermann. What was your first impression when you heard about it and read some about this information?
Well, when I was watching you and Josh go through it, I had the same reaction. I'm like, this guy wrote a homicide for dummies checklist, really? And as you're going through it, and he just keeps getting worse and worse. I said, holy crap. I was floored just like you guys. I was shocked. I couldn't believe it.
And let's talk about that a little bit. So for those out there that said that serial killers don't change their MOs, yeah, I pushed back on that way back when. Of course they do. And now we have written evidence of that, right? He was researching. He had John Douglas's book, Mindhunter, and John Douglas's book, The Cases That Haunt Us. He was learning from his previous mistakes. I mean, if that's not evolving, I don't know what is.
Yeah, 100%. He was learning, sadly, from his experiences. He probably struggled with some of those homicides, and he wanted to continue doing it. So he wanted to, this guy's a monster, right? He wanted to get better at it. So he's making notes. He's writing himself reminders what to do next, right? We were talking about how he said how to hit him harder to knock him out. This guy, and he's a monster. This guy's like the size of Chewbacca, right? And these poor victims that he's just smashing. It's just very sad. It's very sad.
Yeah, it's absolutely awful, and the sheer depravity of it all. And then the fact that, this happened in his basement of his home, right? So they removed the paneling. We saw that a couple of days ago during the search warrant. They removed the paneling, and now we know why. Because as part of his document, he was talking about how he had to hang up the curtain, so to speak, to make sure, I guess, he didn't get blood and stains on the wall and everything else from striking these victims. Absolutely awful.
Yeah, and I'm sure that he had to learn, right? He had to adapt. So I know you and Josh said this, but is it so much of a coincidence that every single time Asa was out of the country, did he say, you know what? I'm feeling like killing somebody. Asa, go to Europe, go somewhere, and then he just did it. Then I don't know. I don't know, Joe. 30 years. 30
Well,
years.
well, remember, Asa wasn't in the picture back in the when this case happened.
This is true. I don't know how long
So
they've been married. Do you?
I don't know, but she wasn't married to him yet in '93 when this case
Right.
happened.
Not with Sandra Costilla. Yeah, yeah.
Right. And there was another woman living with him. It might have been his ex-wife, might be somebody else, but she left too. So this happened right after that individual left the house. So, Mike, we know that this happened with inside the home. So he had to have total privacy because apparently this could have lasted for some of these victims for days.
Right, because he documented about torturing them,
Rest
right, and
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 resting.
giving them rest. This guy is a monster. 100% there's going to be a movie about this guy. I mean, all the information coming out. This is like, I don't think I mean, I don't know. I don't think I've ever seen a movie that someone did like this, like based on some maniac like this. This guy's a
No,
maniac.
like I said, on Saturday when Josh and I were talking about this before it even broke, he said, I think when we're all said and done, we're going to find out that this guy is one of the most prolific serial killers in this country has ever seen. And it's starting to shape up that way.
I stole
It's
I stole that. I stole that word from you.
oh, good.
I said it on the news a couple of times yesterday. I sounded really smart.
It's smart. Well, you can send me the royalty quarters that you get.
I should have
So for
worn.
those,
I didn't think about it. I should have worn your shirt. Oh, so yesterday I did an interview with Live from, what is it called? Live Now from Fox. They saw the podcast. So they told me, hey, we just saw your podcast. Would you like to come on? I was like, there we go. Yeah, we're
wow,
everywhere. We're
that's great.
everywhere.
That's great.
They're probably
So,
watching right now.
well, that's fine, right? So, because we try to give out the best information possible, working with what we know, of course. And for those that are interested, if you haven't read the new indictment, I have a link in the show notes of this show. So if you go to YouTube, and under the description, there is a link. I started writing an article on my blog, and it's not complete yet, but the link is there towards the bottom. You could click on it, and it's 32 pages, and it's unredacted. So it is the full thing. So if you're going to read it, just understand that all of this information that we're going to just touch upon is in that document. So just be mindful and be ready for it when you're reading it, because it might upset you when you're doing so.
Yeah, it's pretty graphic. He describes his past and future actions, and he can't spell for shit.
Yeah, for an architect, right? I thought, listen, I can spell, I just can't do math. But
He can't probably spell architect.
I'll tell you, what an absolute nightmare. But think about this for a second, Mike. In 1993 now, this makes, ready for this? 4 active serial killers on Long Island in 1993. You had Joel Rifkin, Robert Schulman, John Bitroff, and now Rex Heuermann. All 4 of them operating at the same time on Long Island in 1993. All 4 of them.
Insanity. Insanity.
And
Insanity. These people are insane. Insane.
it's
What were you doing in 1993?
I was already in the police department
Right.
when this story broke.
Yeah. I had 4 years on. I was in Bed-Stuy, Crown Heights, the 7-7. Where were you?
Yeah, I got into the academy in June of 1992, and I got sent to the Bronx.
There you go. The Bronx.
Yeah,
A palace.
I was in the Bronx, walking a footpost on White Plains Road. But
I don't think people, you gotta describe that for the viewers, because it sounds nice. White Plains.
Yeah, White Plains Road. It was in 1993. It was bad. So hang on a second. Brady Starr has a good question here. What is the rule to put DNA in CODIS? Okay. The national rule is based on a Supreme Court decision, Maryland versus King, that happened, I think it was 2013. And now I'm getting in my professor mode, Mike, so hang on a second.
I'm reading the chat while you talk.
And it said that the police can take DNA upon arrest, that it is no different than taking fingerprints and photographs. However, Brady, each state can make its own rules. So New York still goes by you have to wait till conviction in order to get the DNA into the system. And unfortunately, that is holding up a lot of cases. Now, Las Vegas had to basically sue New York to get the DNA in order to test it against their cases. Now, we believe that they got it, but they might not have gotten it because we've heard nothing from Las Vegas in some of these cases. So it's something to think about and watch as we go forward. Did you see anything that while I was going on my little talk there?
No, people are just saying,
What they were doing in
well,
1993?
yeah, what they were doing in 93. Sheila says, I look good with my wrench.
Yeah, we had some new
Oh,
wrenches out there.
Raul is on. Raul,
Oh, good.
Sinead,
Welcome
Sarah,
all.
Becky B, Viv. I'm just saying hello to all the chat.
And Lynette Burns just became a new member. Congratulations, Lynette. Thank you very much for joining. There we go. It didn't come up the first time. So think about that. So 4 active serial killers in 1993 on Long Island. It's absolutely insane. And then what you're also dealing with is a situation where let's talk about this, Mike, because as educators, Diane just became a YouTube member. Thank you, Diane. As educators, Mike, one thing that I've always worried about, right, is are you making better criminals? The issue that comes down to is that he was reading Mindhunter by John Douglas, which is basically the first book of its kind that talked about behind the scenes beginnings of the behavioral analysis unit, which we know as criminal profiling. So, I mean, he was taking notes. He was learning how to be better.
Sure. Sure. No internet back then, I don't think, or it's very minimal. So he had to learn from reading, right? He wanted to learn to be a better killer, for a lack of a better word. And I'm sure there's a lot of bad guys that did that. A lot of serial killers probably learned. I think some serial killers even spoke with other serial killers, right? Do you recall anything like that? I feel, unless I'm thinking about a show.
I don't know. Anything's possible with these guys. I mean, when you think about it. But here's the thing,
Yeah.
right? So he was following John Bittroff on Google. He was Googling John Bittroff's name. And if you recall, Sandra Costilla was believed to be a victim of John Bittroff. As a matter of fact, the district attorney who was prosecuting the case, I think it was 2017, said that, we were trying to tie Sandra Castillo to him, but we couldn't do it to make the third piece. And I think maybe Rex was looking at that now and saying he might have been a little jealous that John Bittroff was getting credit for something that he did. I mean, when you think about this, yeah,
100%.
he left human remains in the backyard, so to speak, of a known serial killer. I mean, think about that. I mean, that's more or less like, maybe like an FU kind of thing in certain respects. I know people think that they were maybe working together. Yeah, that could also possibly be true, but I think it's more of a, screw you kind of thing.
100%. I do believe that Heuermann is a psychopath, and as we know, psychopaths have delusions of grandeur. They're narcissistic. Again, I'm putting my professor hat on, and they like the attention. I firmly believe once convicted, he will talk. He will talk about everything once he's done and he's in jail forever, he's going to talk about what he did. I think he wants the notoriety. I think he wants it out there. And like you said, he doesn't want anyone else taking credit for what he's done in the past.
Yep, good point, right? I don't think he's going to talk ahead of time, but we're gonna get into that. Roger Still just gave us a super says, thanks for explaining and sorting all this out. Thank you, Roger. Yeah, we're trying our best to try to go through a very tough subject and do so delicately because we don't want to upset anybody. Says Sheila asked a great question. How many victims do you think will be connected to Rex? Well, listen, now that we have 1993 on the chart, boy, this could open to him up to scores of potential victims. So before the show this morning, how nutty that I've gotten, I went on NamUs, the National Unidentified Missing Persons System, NamUs.gov, for those of you that are interested, and then anybody can use it. There is a public portal for it. So I started just looking at unidentified human remains cases. Mike, just Nassau and Suffolk alone, there are 41 cases listed in NamUs of people who have been found, who they still are unidentified, with different manners of death on them. Some of them, most of them are undetermined because they can't tell. The missing persons cases on Long Island that are in the system, there's 140. Now, I haven't called out genders yet. So that was just the total number of 140. So that includes men, women, and unknown. So there's a lot of work that has to be done doing that. But I know Raul has been on top of this. Whatever Raul thinks, it could be as many as 100 victims. I had thrown out the number, 50, of course, maybe a little bit more on the conservative side. But yeah, this is going to be, unfortunately, epic when this is said and done.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I said it in an interview yesterday that they got their work cut out for him. Tierney's got his work. The 88 District Attorney Tierney's got his work cut out for him. They're definitely going to look, like you said, at other homicides, other unsolved missing persons. We know that because of his murder checklist, we know that he prefers people. I'm going to say people because we do have the Asian male. He likes people with a small body. He might have said, is it because he said it's easier to transport? Did he say something?
It's
Easy to
basically easy to
control.
control. Yeah,
So
he's not picking on 6'5" guys like himself.
right. He's a bully. He's the ultimate bully.
Yeah. And then so Miss T with a super has a question. Says, Mike, what are your thoughts on the wife? There seems to be a lot of the time spent searching the house. I know what happens in my home. Yeah. This is.
I think if people have been watching the show for a while, they know I have my suspicions. I'm not on the same camp as Josh, who doesn't believe. I just can't see how she, if he's been doing this with her, like I don't know how long they've been married. I'm assuming at least more than 10 years. How do you not know what he's doing, honey? Did you see my my blue drop cloth? Do you know what happened to it? I put a plate in the wrong cupboard, and my girlfriend's like, "Why'd you put this here?" It's amazing to me what she picks up. Or did you buy this on Amazon and just put it? I don't know. Unless she could be completely innocent. She could be a victim, right? She could be a victim. She could be what was that term you said? That syndrome you said? She could be a part of that.
Syndrome.
Yeah, she could be Stockholm syndrome. Maybe, right?
Well, and Mike, we've seen it hundreds, if not thousands of times. Victims of domestic violence can be very cooperative with their abusers. And and she might be aware of it, but you know what? When you're reading his document about how hard to hit people and how much of a beast this guy is, right? When you think back now, when Rodney Harrison took the podium and called him a demon, right? He knew then a lot more than we know now. And like I tell you, and you know what? Demon was actually kind of light, going light on him. I mean, this guy is an absolute savage animal. I mean,
this guy's not a demon. This guy's the devil.
Yeah.
And I'm going to say that Asa could have been a victim, right?
Yes.
She could have been. She might have been afraid for her life. But I'm going to play devil's advocate. So I don't know. I'm leaning towards that she might have known a little bit. That's just my opinion.
I think she might have known that things were going on with him and other women, but I don't think she knew the extent of his doing because, like I said, I don't know if anybody would. That house isn't soundproof and it's so small. I can't imagine somebody, not hearing anything that was going on in the basement or having the chance of somebody else seeing him do this. So, I'm going with the fact that he waited for it. So Scott's got a statement here, which I kind of set a firestorm off last year. It says, I want to see Nassau County Police Department go through the preserve in Massapequa Park. As far as I know, they only went to directed areas for MS-13. Yes, Scott. And if you remember last year when this case first broke and they said, well, where's he been for the last 12, 13 years? And I said, well, there's a huge park that's like, 1,500 to 2,000 acres that leads up into Bethpage State Park. And I had just put that on Twitter, Mike. Next thing you know, the New York Post contacted me. They asked me if they could use it. I said, yes. And the next thing you know, as you know, Mike, when you're doing the media stuff, things can just like take off and grow legs. And then all of a sudden, I'm sure Nassau County and Suffolk were not happy with my comment, but because that would mean a lot more work. But I don't think that they actually did anything about that because it's right around the corner from his house.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, listen, it's a full court press now. They're going to have to investigate, entertain everything that they could possibly link to Yerman and solve. Um, I'll, I think somebody in the chat said it, or in the comments yesterday said it. How many people could they have saved if they captured Yerman 10, 12 years ago? And, that's scary for sure.
Michael Harrison, welcome as a new member of the channel. Thank you very much. Yeah, Mike, talk about opportunities lost. And we talk about this in policing all the time, right? Go out there, make the arrest as fast as you can, incapacitate that person in order to reduce further victimization, right? That's been drilled into our heads for so long. But we come from a different department, and different departments we know handle things. But there was a sense of urgency, I think, in the beginning, but then we saw this whole case just fall apart.
Yeah. I'm just thinking, like we're talking about his kill room in the basement. I wonder if he used physical force to overcome his victims, or did he drug them? Like you said, they have, if they were fighting, if he was just using physical force, there had to be noise coming out of that house. And those houses aren't, like you said, soundproof. They're small. The other homes are right on top. I wonder if they're gonna determine that if he used some kind of a drug,
Well, I would hopefully that they went and try to find other women or so that he has contacted for sex work, and maybe there was something maybe like slipped in the drink, or maybe they felt weird, or they were able to escape something. Because Mike, I agree with you, right? Could you imagine Massapequa Park, young girl screaming out there, nobody noticing or hearing anything? People in those neighborhoods hear everything, and that's why I originally said I didn't think anything happened in the house, right? Because it's such everyone's on top of one another, and it's really hard to keep people out of your business in that kind of spec. But the evidence that they showed today showed me that I was totally wrong about that aspect of this case.
Did he say, I didn't review the document completely, which by the way, somebody asked, it's in the link, right? You have
it's in the show notes, right? So if you go to the YouTube page that you're in watching the show, if you just click on where it says description, it's in there. Just it says specifically in the Rex Heuermann indictment document. You just click on the link and it'll take you right to the page, and you can just download it from there.
I was just wondering what time of day, I don't know what time of day he killed this woman. Again, I'm thinking about, like, he's worried about people, his victims making noise, right? I thought he mentioned something about that. So, if you do it at night, it's very quiet at night. If someone's screaming, yeah, it's going to be very interesting to find out how he did this, how he executed his killings.
Yep. Bella Moon, Mike, checking in from Ireland. Do you think Valerie Mack and Peaches will be next victims added? Bella Moon, you heard it here first. Valerie Mack is going to be added, I would say, and I'm going to go out on another limb here. I say within the next 6 months, I think we see that one come down. Peaches,
I agree.
I'm hoping, right? Peaches has been, and the reason why I focused on Peaches for so long is because of her baby, right? I mean, talk about, and we know now this guy is really off the charts with his depravity. So let me tell you something. That's the case we want to see solved because of her child. I mean, good grief.
We have a lot of viewers. We have a lot of global viewers, Joe. And they were asking, when we do the Night Watch show, what time are we going to do it? Because I think there's like a 5-hour difference, or 4 or 5 hour difference for Europe. So
we'll have to work that out, because I have to figure out, right? I don't know, is it a 7-hour difference, 5-hour difference? I guess it depends on where they're watching in the world, but we'll work that out.
Yeah.
Sweet Caroline, thank you for becoming a member. And so is Amy Pennsylvania, became a YouTube member. Thanks, Amy. I'm assuming that you live in Pennsylvania. Mike we almost lost you for a second there, Mike. You were doing your magic trick again.
I'm doing my mic wear.
So Jody Killam says, didn't one girl run from the house naked during a swinger situation with Asa? Yeah, that was the affidavit from John Ray, and he said that the woman who brought was at the time was a detective from the New York City Police Department, brought Karen Vagata to the house. Well, we don't know if that has been any verification yet on any of those things, but let me tell you something. Karen Vagata now is clearly in the sights of Ray Tierney too, because I think her case is 1996, if I recall correctly. So 3 years after Valerie Mack, absolutely included for sure. And then Steel Guitar has a question. Says, Sarge, does anyone know where Asa is now? Will law enforcement pick her up to interrogate her? Steel, gonna just guess she knew this was coming. The defense knew this was coming. That's why the daughter was there to let them in, that they didn't bash down the door. She was gone with her son, because this was, and I don't think they're ever returning to this house, because they removed the plumbing. They removed now we know that they removed things from the basement. I don't think it's going to be livable there anymore.
Yeah. Asa, however you pronounce it. I would love to talk to Asa. I would love to interview Asa.
Yeah, I would too. I would do that. Brooklyn Rules.
I'd love to interrogate Heuermann. When we talk about interrogations, right? I think I would be perfect, especially if he's got like a fetish like we suspect. You bring me in there, he might just talk to me, right? He might not talk to you, Joe, but he'll talk to me. All right. I fit his small body, menu.
Menu. Good way of putting it. So Brooklyn Rose says, did he keep them in the basement, and for how long? Apparently it seems to be that way, Brooklyn. And we don't know for sure, but his wife was gone for like a whole week, the time when Valerie Mack was disappeared. And in his document, he talks about make sure that they give them enough rest so that he could have more fun with them, and hitting them harder to try to control them a little bit. So it's absolutely awful. So we're almost at the halfway mark, Mike.
Already?
If you're tuning in just now, we're up to 570 people watching this live. We have retired Detective Michael Alcazar, and we're breaking down further the documents that were released yesterday in the new indictment against Rex Heuermann, the alleged Long Island serial killer. And it's gotten to a point where, let's say, Renee, thank you very much for your super. As a question here, random thought. Didn't the neighbor say he burned shit in the middle of the night? And Doc said something like burn gloves. Yeah, no, it's there was a story that he had an open pit fire in the backyard that he was using. So yeah, that's all this stuff is, and that's why they were digging in the backyard. I guess they were looking for remnants of certain things that could have been because listen, we know that in fires you can't get rid of everything. I mean, fires have to kind of raise to that about 2,000 degrees if you're talking about body parts specifically. So
I think for most of our viewers that have watched the Rex Heuermann interview, remember the guy that what did they say?
Simi Sharp about the house. Was it livable before? Yeah, that's questionable for sure. Simi.
I was going to say that for the people that watched the Rex Heuermann interview, remember that guy who was doing a doc and interviewed him? He's very personable, right? He's very approachable. I can see where the neighbors, and they're not going to admit it now, but they probably like Rex. They probably talked to him. They probably didn't like Asa, right? They probably preferred talking to Rex, and that's a psychopath. They like to make people like them. They use that to their advantage, and I'm sure that's how he lured so many of his victims. He comes on. I mean, he's huge, right? This guy's humongous, but he probably comes off as very harmless. He portrays himself as someone very safe, and that's how he victimized all these women.
Soft-spoken guy too. Viv just checked in and says, Mike, she loves Mike's confidence. I
love Viv.
Yep, Viv's awesome. And what you're dealing with here, like I did an interview with the Fox News yesterday, and the question is always asked, like, this guy was so unassuming. Like, how does this happen? And I said, this happens in all the serial killer cases. These guys don't want attention drawn to themselves. That's why your mom told you, be careful of the quiet ones. There's reasons why they told you that, because these are the guys that kind of like, do this kind of stuff, for crying out loud. They're not out there making noise and drawing all kinds of attention to. And Mike, you could tell us too, right? When you had a group of kids or a group of adults and you were wanting them for a crime, usually the person that's always doing the talking in that group is not your guy. Because he's the one who's really quiet, sitting in the corner, trying to avoid the eye contact and everything else. Those are the guys that you kind of concentrate on when you're doing a case where there's more than one suspect.
100%. It's not unusual for a perpetrator to come back to the scene of the crime because they want to see their work. They want to see the response. They want to see the shock and awe. Ms. T said that he was very arrogant. Yeah, 100%, 100%.
Yeah, I could probably agree with all that kind of stuff. That at this point, you know what, Mike? I don't know if maybe they thought about it at the time. Maybe they didn't. Maybe it was a good idea to send in maybe a female investigator, right? One of the detectives who was just his type to send in there to talk to him, right? I mean, you would
Yeah,
think that that would have been on the table as from a supervisor standpoint. I mean, that would have been
100%.
on the table for me.
For sure, for sure. You don't want another big hairy guy talking to this guy. That's just not his. That's not his flavor. He wants to talk to a small woman. That's who he's going to confide in. And again, we
Or
use a
try
lot
to
of those.
control, right? Or try to
Yeah, 100.
control.
Yeah, and that's
And
part of the technique of interview interrogation. So
right, but I can tell you right now, if I would have made that decision, if I was doing this case, that big 6'5" hairy guy would have been right outside the door, maybe two or three of them,
oh,
watching
for
very
sure,
closely what was happening because,
for sure.
you don't do something like that without having extra protection ready because if this guy decides to attack her, you want to. It was one of the things that we did in cold case. I mean, Steve and I were both shorter guys compared to, and then when we had Mark and Tony, who was 6'4" plus. Mark would take up the entire door frame, and we used to go in to talk to people and say, "Listen, you talk to us, well, you got to talk to him," and they would like look around you and go, I'll talk to you guys," because Mark was another, he was another teddy bear, but huge guy, huge guy, but yeah,
Huge with a Y.
yeah, all huge. All those guys, you know, had unique ways of also, talking to people and getting things out of them and really highly skilled. I mean, those guys in cold case would do, 30, 40-year detectives, and you don't see that anymore.
No, I don't think we're going to see that for a while with the
Or
mass
ever.
departure.
Or ever. Yeah, I think those days are gone. That you're gonna see that. You lose that experience. And you think about a place like Suffolk who didn't really experience a lot of this murder and mayhem either. The experience of doing these things over and over again also helps you in your cases. I mean, it'd be nice to work in a place where none of that stuff happened, but when it does, you got to be prepared for it. We're seeing that night now play out, Mike, in places like Canton, Moscow, Idaho, right? Some of these big cases, we're seeing that inexperience playing a big role in messing up these cases.
Yeah, yeah, and I know. I think it was you or Dave. It was you that gave kudos to Suffolk for processing that crime scene way back in
Yeah,
1993, and now we can use it. I stole that also. I said that in the news clip yesterday. I stole everything
okay,
from you.
that's fine. Lori Ann Jackson became a member. Like, well, you know what though, Mike? The reason why I had said that, and I don't know if you preface it with the same thing too. I mean, listen, myself included, we beat up Suffolk County Police Department for the terrible investigation that they did during the beginning stages of this and how it kind of went in afterwards. But when things are done right, you have to give them the credit for it and saying that this was done right. I mean, think about this, Mike. In 1993, we had no idea what was going on with DNA and hair follicles and all the other stuff and mitochondrial DNA. The only time
Yeah,
we knew about mitochondrial DNA was, maybe biology in high school. You might have heard about it. Other than that, to be able to identify perpetrators, absolutely not. So
you
it
got to
is.
explain the mitochondrial and the nuclear. I
Okay.
totally screwed that up in an interview yesterday. I got it reversed.
Okay. Here's the easiest way to remember it. Mitochondrial DNA, M for mom, only derived from mom. So mitochondrial is mom. Nuclear DNA derived from both parents. That's about the
Love it.
simplest way that you could do it. And in order to get a full profile, you need nuclear DNA. And initially, in this case, if you read through the affidavit, and for those of you that maybe have downloaded it and are reading through it now, they talk about that they had the mitochondrial DNA, and then all of a sudden it switched to the nuclear DNA. So that means, and for those audience that might not know, let's just talk about it quickly. The hair follicle, the entire hair follicle, which means the bulb, that little, I don't have any, but if you pull out a hair follicle and you see that little white little thing, that's the bulb. There's another name that covers it, but that bulb is the one that contains both mitochondrial DNA and nuclear DNA. That's the one you hope for. The shaft, if you just have the shaft, which means that the hair was either cut or it was pulled out and didn't get the bulb, that is only mitochondrial DNA, which means you can only develop, and here's the limitations of that. It only can provide people from the mother's side, right? So you lose half of everything else. So it's just the mother's side that you have to look for. And then that, of course, limits your ability to be able to tie things to. I know that sounds kind of complicated, but it really isn't. But just remember, M, mitochondrial for mom. That's, if you remember that, you can never go wrong.
I'll never forget it. I'll never say the wrong thing on world news again.
Well, listen, sometimes, doing live TV could be a little bit of, you get a little verklempt no matter how many times you do it, right? I've stumbled and I've uttered and ummed and eased and it's just,
my God.
You're in front of a live television audience. It can get really nerve wracking sometimes. And you don't know the questions that you're going to be asked. A lot of people think like this.
Somebody just said, have you done mitochondrial as a test question and nuclear?
I believe there's been a mitochondrial DNA question already.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Yeah, guys. Yeah, we've had a lot of new members. We're closing in already almost on 12,000. So we added 1,000 subscribers in about in a week, not even. So the channel is growing fast. But for those of you that are just joining as members, it's available to every subscriber. There is a quiz 6 days a week and a poll on Sundays, and you can go back. I think there might be at least 50 or 60 quiz questions. You could take them all at one time. And for the members, not only do you have access to that, but you also have members only questions and some other things too. So for all those new members, you can take a look at and see
We gotta arrange a hangout for people that are local to us. Next time I'm in Long Island, I'm totally hitting up Raul. And get him a nice old fashioned or whatever. I think he likes bourbon. I love bourbon. So, but
yeah, sure. Like I said, well, if and when this trial actually starts, I'm going to be out there for sure. There's no question about it. So we can do a whole bunch of things.
I'm going to Boston in July. I know we've talked it to death and beat Karen Reed to death. I hope they already finished that trial. And I'm definitely going to be a little bit weary walking around, wary walking around Boston. But I do want to go to the house, and I do want to go to that pub.
Well, it's in Dedham, which is only about 25 minutes or so outside.
Yeah.
When my wife and I have gone to Boston a number of times. We always stayed at the Marriott in Dedham because there's a train right around the corner. You could take it. It's like the Long Island Railroad. You could take it right into Boston. You don't have to bring your car or anything. But now, Mike, we're gonna have to get those glasses with the nose and the sunglasses there because, boy, oh boy, we're kind of persona non grata. The way Officer Sheriff is gonna be driving around looking for us.
I want to get a Canton PD patch and put it in my backdrop.
I don't think that's a good idea. I do not think that's a good idea. But getting back to.
And people think we're pro-police.
Yeah, I know.
People think we're biased towards the police. When they're doing it wrong, we abuse them. When they're doing it right, we give them props.
So Deb Basili from Long Island said, question, do you know if his office was ever searched? Yes, in July. They did a whole search warrant at his office at 385 Fifth Avenue. And how do I remember that address? Because I have a video coming out from the entire day that he was going to arrest. I was going to wait till July, but I might actually put it out now. But he was arrested on July 23rd of 2023, the day after they did all the search warrants at his office, and they removed a whole bunch of things from it. And I have all the locations where the garbage pail was, where they got the pizza, where his office is, and where the exact arrest scene. It's a short video. I'm going to post it on my page soon.
Violet said, Canton PD might deputize me. I could train them. I could train them on crime scene processing. I could do like a 2-hour block for them free, gratis.
I would, listen, if they asked and they to say, would you come up and just give us a couple of tips and pointers about things? I mean, I've written 2 textbooks on this. Yeah, maybe I would do it, but you'd have to sign a release that said that after the training, you have to let me go. Right? You're not going to throw me in a cage somewhere. But Marianne.
Yeah, go ahead.
Marianne Lebowitz says, do you do live trial coverage? We generally don't, but there might be a few little instances like yesterday we did the presser and stuff like that that we will do from time to time. I still want to do the
Proctor.
proctor things. Everyone loves our accents, Mike. I don't know what accents we have, but
I love. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry.
Carbon says she loves the New York. He or she loves the New York accents.
I love everyone else's accent. I forgot who I was telling it to, but my GPS on my phone is set to an Australian accent. You know, because it makes me pay attention.
According to Brooklyn rules, Proctor's testifying Monday, so
Ooh.
that should be interesting.
Oh,
Do it like the Irons Hot Show. Yes, Cakes Boo. Yeah, for sure. I mean, but listen, I think the dominoes of the Gilgo investigation are about to fall, and that means every case.
And it's a
Yeah.
long trail of dominoes.
I admitted I was wrong about having crimes in the house, but I'm going to take credit for saying from the very beginning that this has been a one serial killer case, and I've never gotten off that. And after yesterday, I think there's going to be a lot of people jumping on that bandwagon, even those that have been fighting me for the last years, saying that I was wrong about the one serial killer case just because of the different MOs. I think that kind of gets thrown out the window with that, and I think the rest of the cases will come. I just think that Tierney seemed very confident, Mike, when he was talking about additional cases. When he said, "We're not stopping," he sounded really confident. And he gave that look, he lifted up his chin. He looked like a guy who was like ready to, pound his chest.
Mm-hmm.
I look for those kind of nonverbal cues.
I have my thoughts about Tierney too, but I'll be good today. But yeah, good job.
Okay. Yeah, Tierney's got his good thing. Yeah, listen, he likes the camera. He likes the thing. But you know what? He's going to be, in the next 8 years, he's going to be New York State governor if this case goes the way it goes.
I was thinking the same thing. He's definitely setting himself up for a future appointment somewhere. And why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they vote for him?
It wouldn't be the first time either, right? Remember Thomas Dewey going back in the 30s, prosecuting Murder Incorporated and the mob, and then running for governor and then running for president and nearly won, as the famous Dewey Defeats Truman newspaper that was printed. Remember that in the history lessons? So, yes, he's definitely, I think, headed that way. And Violet says LISK trial would be 2026 at best. Yes, Violet, I agree. Late 2025, early 2026. But Mike, we were talking about this offline. Let's talk about it now because I think it's important. How do you think the district attorney is going to handle these 6 cases now in regards to when it comes to trial?
Yeah. I'm in the same camp as you. I'm thinking it's going to be at least 2 separate cases, 2 separate trials. So, like you said, you don't want something introduced in one case that's not pertinent or relevant to another. Try to go 4, and then boom. They might do Jessica Taylor and Sandra Costilla. That might be 2 separate trials too. I don't know. It'd be interesting
based on the years. But what I'm hoping, Mike, is that they go with the Gilgo 4, they get the conviction, and then I still think the defense attorney Michael Brown's got to be saying, I said publicly he's saying one thing, but in private he's got to be saying, dude,
he's such a nice guy. Michael Brown's such a nice guy. He's probably going to Rex, you're killing my career, bro. How am I going to defend you? Yes. Let's just take the plea.
Yes. I mean, well, now you have 6 cases that are just not only tied to DNA, but tied for with the forensics, but it's also tied to electronic evidence, it's tied to video evidence, and now we learned another thing in that document yesterday. There was another eyewitness that saw his green Avalanche at the dump site where Jessica Taylor's body was found. I know people don't like dump site, but that's cop speak, for the location, the crime scene where they left the body. Saw his green truck, and then all of a sudden he must have known Mike because he was searching for new Chevy Avalanches right after that.
Yeah. I wonder if there was some kind of interaction, because why would he search for a new vehicle, right? There must have been some kind of interaction. And I'm going to assume that was documented in a police report, right? Mm-hmm. That witnessed.
Raul is telling us superseding document means one trial. And I believe he's right. So, yeah, you have to tie all 6 of these together to one trial. Great point, Raul. Thank you. Brooklyn Rules says, were you surprised to see Gloria Aldrich there? I was. She showed up last time she was there, and she shot a strong message. I think she didn't name him, but I think she shot a message at John Ray when she said that basically, like, I am representing these victims' families. All those kind of questions come to me. That wasn't the exact quote, but it was something like that. Yeah, she is a force to be reckoned with, and I'm assuming there is a civil case that will be pending after this whole mess is straightened out because of how this case was handled to do some of these things, these cases back in Suffolk, specifically with Burke.
And listen, justifiably so, right? All these families have been waiting all these years for closure, and then all of a sudden we're solving this case. I mean, what lost opportunity? Perhaps some poor lives could have been saved because of the lack of action in the past and the previous administration. So again, Tierney making the previous administration look bad, Rodney Harrison making the previous police department executives look bad.
Several
So,
police executives after making them look bad. Maria Z says, I feel sorry for Michael Brown. And in a way, I do too, because I actually did a show with Michael Brown on Court TV, and he is a really nice guy. So don't take it out on him that he's representing Rex. I mean, defense attorneys have to represent sometimes some of the worst people in society. That's why we have them. So you can't really take it out on that poor guy. But I do think that eventually he's gonna have to have that talk with him and say, Rex, either he's gonna end up quitting, right? Because like you said, what kind of defense can you bring up on this? What kind of what?
I don't know. He better get Jackson.
Quick.
He better go get Jackson on board. And Yannetti, get Yannetti over there.
You know what? I don't think it matters. So yeah, Raul said the exact quote was, "I am the only one representing," and that's Gloria Aldrich saying that, and it had to be directed towards John Ray. There's no other person that I think that had to be directed to, and I think that it was just a strong message sent to the media too, like stop asking questions to other people in regards to some of these cases. I will be reaching out to Miss Aldrich, see if she wants to become on the show. So to talk about the victims and the families, but I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was going to say a comment, but now I won't. I'll be nice.
Okay, good. You can tell me offline. Grey Witch I don't know why we're having problems getting up the, there it is. Grey Witch just sent the super sticker. Thank you very much, Grey Witch. I really appreciate that. So we're talking about possibility of all 10 victims, right? And then we also have Shannon Gilbert, who is the outlier, so to speak. I know people are bringing out Rex Heuermann being responsible maybe for Shannon Gilbert, but Mike, after reading this document yesterday that he created and how careful he was trying to be, I'm not thinking he has anything to do with Shannon Gilbert's death. Not a thing. Because think about if you look at his document and you look at the place Oak Beach where this happened, this small knit community, everyone knows everyone's business. There's video cameras in order to get in. You have to check in before you go there. Shannon brought her own driver, right? She has her own cell phone. She's making 911 calls. I think it would have been too much of a risky thing for him to do so. And maybe he doesn't mean he didn't have relationship with Shannon Gilbert in the past, but I just don't think that he was responsible for her.
Interesting. Yeah, I agree. Interesting. I agree. He seems, and we saw how, for lack of a better word, how successful he was. For now it looks like 3 decades. So he was definitely very cautious in selecting his victims and murdering them. So.
Yep. And as we're going on here, Mike, 723 people watching us live. So
what's
if you're just
going
joining us
on?
now, if you're just watching us live now, we're talking to retired Detective Michael Alcazar, and we are just giving some further insights after we have now digested all of the superseding indictment from yesterday and just going through some of the other things. I mean, this guy, Mike, was even changing tires on his cars. Now, I don't know if you are aware of this. You might be, but forgive me if you are aware of this. When you look at the crime scene photos from when Peaches was left at Hempstead Lake State Park, if you haven't seen them, I'll try to find them for people and I'll post them. There are tire track marks that are marked at the scene. with the crime scene markers, number 1, number 2, number
Yeah.
3, and
Yeah.
they have the tires of the cars
Yeah.
specifically marked. So, once again, either it's him or it's not. Things like that he's learned from, because he talks about often changing the tires of his cars because he's leaving different trial marks in some of these locations,
Yeah.
specifically in Gilgo, right? It was all just
Yeah.
grass and bushes. So I think that's something to think about.
Yeah. He must have watched My Cousin Vinny and said, I'm going to change my tires.
So Firefly with that super says FetLife is the biggest BDSM site in the world. No doubt Rex is on there. Yeah, I'm not familiar with that one, but we've seen him use other things like as Backpage and Craigslist. We know that. But Mike, how about I know I picked it up, and I know several other people picked it up, but 50 hotel keys he kept. Hotel and motel keys kept. 50. Like,
Somebody was
there's your
asking me
souvenir.
about that. Yeah, somebody was asking me about that. Like, did he keep trophies? And I'm thinking that's something that he's keeping.
That's
Those
a
hotel
souvenir.
keys. Yep,
Yeah, that's a
100%.
souvenir. Now, I don't know how difficult it would be to try to track down where those keys were from. And but that's something to think about as a souvenir for sure, about
Mm-hmm.
his time spent. Does he do whatever he has to do in the room, puts the girl in his car, like, I'm going to drop you off somewhere, then overtakes her, ties her up or whatever, and throws her in the back seat? I mean, if you've seen the videos, and I've been searching for a 2003 Avalanche, and I'm going to try to pull somebody over one day, or if this parked, the way that truck is designed, you can gain access to the bed from the inside of the vehicle. It's one of the only pickup trucks I've ever seen do this. There are two hatches on the back that pull down, and from the back seat itself, you could just have access. And if you have that enclosed, no one can see what you're doing. So I'm thinking he overtook the person, put them in through the back into the just in case he gets stopped, because one of his things on there was worried about getting stopped by the police, right? A la Joel Rifkin, who was stopped in his pickup truck
Yeah.
with a woman in his bed of his truck.
Yeah. Yeah.
So he was, not only was he changing his MO, but he was evolving, and he was learning from others and others' mistakes. Because Joel Rifkin, that's how he got caught on the Southern State Parkway with a pickup truck, who at the time, believe it or not, driving a pickup truck on the Southern State Parkway in 1993 was against the New York State vehicle traffic law, because it was a parkway. And they did away with that several years later, which they shouldn't have. But that's a whole other issue. But that's something else to think about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the document is very telling. Again, I don't know how Michael Brown is going to dispute all this. It's certainly going to be very challenging.
Yeah, he was searching for all kinds of things. So here, Pete Panzo says Rex knew the new task force, well publicized, was coming for him. Yeah, Pete, he was searching for those things. Why wasn't the serial killer caught yet? All those other kind of Google searches. I mean, and that was previous to this superseding indictment. But good grief, the amount of information in there. So they actually left a phone number in the superseding indictment because they're looking for somebody to identify that number and who it comes back to. So, I mean,
someone said the document. Someone said the document finished him. I think the document is the icing on the cake.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing that finally gets, I think, Michael Brown to try to convince him to say, "Yeah, dude, we got to take a plea here." And they actually asked that question. There was a reporter that asked Tierney, "Are you talking to the to the lawyer about this stuff?" Because he kind of said, "I can't talk about certain things, whatever, but we are in contact." I think at this point he's got to be saying.
I mean, what plea deal would they give him? He's never getting out.
Well, we know that, but still, save the trials. I mean, this trial is going to be God knows how long, and you got to put these families through this stuff again. The evidence is overwhelming as far as I'm concerned. I know people are going to be very upset at me saying, "Oh, there's due process and this and that," and I say, fine. You want to go through the whole charade? Let's go through the whole charade. I can guarantee you how it's going to end. I can just guarantee you how it's going to end. And yeah, so you can't offer him anything in a plea other than just saying, maybe we won't give you maybe we'll give you some benefits for being in prison, right? Maybe we'll give you a couple of luxuries that you can't get. So E. Caroline became a member, and Daisy Live Love, thank you for that super. Really appreciate that, right, Mike? I mean, we've seen prisoners get some benefits that other prisoners don't get because of deals that they make. You know, maybe he gets an espresso machine.
So maybe he'll get, bi-weekly back shavings.
Yep. Raul just sent me a picture of what the back of I don't have my other computer running today. I don't know if you can see. That's from inside. Hang on, sorry. The light.
Now we know you're using a ring light.
Yeah. Well, that's from when I do my offline stuff. But yeah, so I mean, I've been looking for somebody driving one of those things, and I'm going to be like, listen, I know this is going to sound odd, but there's a serial killer from Long Island that uses the same exact truck. I just want to videotape the back of your truck. The guy would be like looking at me like, this guy's absolutely nuts. No, you don't understand. The subscribers that have on my channel would like to see it, what it looks like. But
you can't just look that up online.
You can, but what happens is the videos then are not yours. You got to ask permission to use them and everything else, and then I don't want to.
No, I mean, there's no images.
Well, there are, but like I said, I just wanted to have my own images. This way, I don't have to worry about copyright issues or anything like that.
Understood.
Yeah, because YouTube can get really, really nasty when it comes to copyright infringement stuff. And that's why when you're streaming, like the presser, you have to say words every now and then because you don't want to make it like you're just running it straight through. You have to have some type of discussion in there.
Oh, if we're going to do that, right? If we're going to do the Proctor one, which might be Monday, I like the way Gisela does it, where, she starts the show. It's already streaming. So then she can catch up and she can pause and make comments. Just a little constructive criticism. Because when you were doing it yesterday, I noticed like when Tierney was talking, then you would talk and like, oh, what did the district attorney say? So I like the pause, make the comment, and continue playing.
Yes, I will do that. Like I said, that's only the second time I've done that. But yeah, it's a great point. And Gisela's, if you don't know who Gisela is, Grizzly True Crime, you got to go over there if you're not a subscriber. She's got over 300,000 subscribers.
She's so awesome.
She's such a nice lady, and she's like the queen of true crime. Yeah,
she's great. We probably have we got a bunch of grizzlies here.
Yeah, Bold and Snarky is my spirit animal. Daisy Live Love forgot my message. Lots of laugh. Thank you again. I said I don't think his earlier ones were planned and he made mistakes. I think so. I think he used the books to make it appear as if there were several serial killers, which is the kind of pretty good idea. Yeah, Daisy, I read those books when I was a young cop. I read Mindhunter. I read if you're interested. I think another good book by John Douglas was Anatomy of Motive. I think that, and of course, the John Douglas and Ann Burgess book, Sexual Homicide. Now, all three of those books discuss certain things. So now what we do know is that Sandra Costilla, her shirt, I believe, was over her face. And usually when the suspect covers somebody's face is that they know the victim and they try to do it. But that information was detailed in Douglas's books about how they looked at victims and to see if the perpetrator and the victim had a relationship like you knew. Like you couldn't see her face because you didn't want to look at it afterwards and that kind of stuff. That generally meant that the suspect and the victim had a very close relationship. And I think he was trying to stage the crime scene to make it look like that. And a lot of that stuff is in those books because I remember reading it. I was actually going to read Mindhunter again because of this case, but I had to go get another copy because I don't have the old copy anymore. But it's another interesting aspect that this was used as basically his framework for these killings.
Yeah. It's a good movie too. I don't like reading books.
Netflix, right? Is that on Netflix?
Mindhunter? I don't know.
Yeah, I believe it is. So yeah, Heidi says I've never read it, but I will now. Yes, and Mindhunter was like the first one, but the Sexual Homicide book, and there's a book also by Douglas and others, Crime Classification Manual. If you really want to get into the behavioral evidence which could be a good quiz question. The behavioral evidence about what makes people think and tick about what they do. Because I did an interview. I don't know if you saw that, Mike, with Mark Safarik. He was a former FBI profiler, and he did the crime scene analysis. I mean, he gave a master class on the behavioral evidence and staging crime scenes. If you guys didn't see that, you should go watch that, because he gave a lot of insight into some of these kind of
Hey,
incidents.
you know who I just thought about? You know who you should interview? I don't know if you did already. Marianne O'Toole. Remember Marianne O'Toole, FBI profiler? Did you do it already?
No, I haven't had Marianne on.
Oh my God, they would love her. We got to bring her in.
Okay,
she's so awesome.
Yeah, and also I've been trying to get a hold of Amy Herman. To get her on. Yeah, no, guys, we have some great shows lined up for the future. We got some guests that you really don't normally see or haven't seen yet, but are just like absolute experts in their fields, and they're just kind of low profile. But Mike and I know them extremely well, and they might do us a favor and come on.
Yeah, Marianne O'Toole and Amy Herman both regularly presented for us when we would conduct a homicide course. Marianne O'Toole has been on a lot of news programs, and if you Google Amy Herman, like on YouTube, you're not gonna regret it. Just watch one of her TED Talks. Amazing.
Yeah, she's TED Talker. Art of Persuasion is her website, I think, even. But
Perception, the art of perception.
Thank you, art of perception. So I mean, yeah, those are some of the future plans, and Mike, I'm gonna call it on you to get in contact and to try to see.
Oh, Amy's down. Amy's down. I'm sure Marianne O'Toole. Marianne O'Toole was awesome. I mean, you want a profiler? That is the ultimate profiler. You know, she talks to you like, I would tell her anything. She talks to you like a wife, like a mother. I mean, excellent. Just a professional. I guarantee that would be a top show when you get her on.
Yep. Well, like I said, we're going to have you reach out to her. I haven't spoken to her in a long time. I'm sure you have a better relationship than I did. But so yeah, Carbon saying that Marianne O'Toole is featured in the Delphi Murders documentary. She is awesome. Yes, she is.
Yes.
Yes, she is. She does not get a lot of the credit that she deserves for a lot of her stuff.
She didn't. I don't know why. It could be the FBI culture. I don't know.
Well, not just that though. Some people that we know, Mike, are not really good self-promoters, right? I mean, that's the bottom line too. Sometimes the self-promotion bit. You've seen this now, being in the media business. There are some of us that do a better job. I don't do a good job at self-promotion. I know I don't. But
well, you do a good job because people are watching this and they're reaching out to us.
Well, but this is the venue that they're using that for, right? I'm not running out there and going, "Hey, everybody, you know, blah 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 blah. This is what I do. This is what happened." You know, just most people don't even know I've written 2 textbooks either. You know, I mean, and now they do. I mean, I just mentioned it because I don't really talk about it.
My old partner yesterday, he's now works in, I think he's in North Carolina. He's a detective in North Carolina. He retired and went over there. He's watching the news and he sees me and it's a live. I'm doing a live. And as I'm doing the live, I get this text. The guy, he goes to me, "What the fuck do you know about DNA?" And I almost cracked up because I'm doing the live. I'm like, and I had to call him later. I said, "Dude, that was a live. I'm getting your message." I almost broke character.
All right, Mike. Time for the microphone. It is now, we're now an hour and 3 minutes into this.
We're over.
We're over an hour. So yeah, somebody else has said no story time, Mike.
I could do a story, but man, I'm always trying to think of something like I couldn't come up with a crime scene one. Did I do the asthma one? The 1054 80 case. Did I do that one? It's got nothing. I'm sorry, folks. I'm running out of stories.
Well, it's not running out of stories. We have to. There's lots of stories we could tell, but some of them we can't tell in mixed company either, and do all this stuff.
It's going to be muted. And yeah, I don't know. Did I do the asthma? I don't know if I did the asthma.
Go ahead. Tell it anyway.
Because I do this open mic. I do this open mic in Doylestown, and I tell the story, so I forget because I'm old. Did I say it in open mic or did I say it here? But anyway,
lay it on us.
When I was on patrol, we responded to a 1054 80 case. That's the code word for it. So it was an 80 case. It was an asthmatic 7-year-old. We show up on the scene, and I was a rookie, so I didn't have a partner. So I was working with a bunch of different people, and I have asthma, folks, and it's under control. And I definitely sympathize for this kid. He's 7-year-old. He's having difficulty breathing. If you have asthma, you know it's like breathing through like one of those sippy straws in a coffee cup. And we're waiting for the bus. We're waiting for the ambulance. It's taking forever. So I called for the bus again. I said, listen, ETA for the bus. And they were like, whatever. They were giving me a long time. The hospital is only like 2 blocks away. So I told my partner, let's put him and his mother in the car. Let's get him to the hospital. So I put him in the car. You know, it was really bad. I really felt bad. So I put him in the police car. The mother's in the police car. And now the mother's panicking because she goes, oh my God, he's having difficulty breathing. My partner's panicking. She goes, oh my God, he's going to die. I'm like, why are you saying that? Anybody know that they have asthma, right? When you add stress, it makes it worse. I'm going to drive the kid to the hospital. But I have my partner panicking. I have the mother panicking. The kid's turning blue. And now, everybody just stay cool. I don't know if you guys know this about me and Joe. We basically don't have a pulse. We've handled everything. We're just cool customers. And you got to be cool. Make a long story short, I get the kid to the hospital. It was St. Mary's. We called it St. Scary's because everyone dies in that hospital. It was St. Mary's Hospital in Brooklyn. And, you know, when you're escorted by the cops, you're not waiting in the waiting room. Boom, I get him right into the ER, right into the doctors, and they took care of him, you know. It was like a 2-minute ride, but I never work with that person again. I can't work with someone that panics, especially if you're law enforcement, especially when it's somebody's life. You got to be calm. We did the right thing, right? You know, you can always justify that. She was just worried that she was a rookie like me at the time. She thought she was going to get terminated because, you know, we didn't wait for the ambulance. I said, I'm not waiting for the ambulance. This kid can't breathe. I'm not waiting for the bus.
Right,
you know?
Right move. Yeah, I remember St. Mary's. I worked in the 7-3. St. Mary's.
Right.
When I was a cop in the Bronx, we had Our Lady of Mercy, which we used to call Our Lady of Misery for the same thing. And Brookdale. Brookdale at the hospital, we used to call that the stairway to heaven back in the day because
How about Woodhull? You ever go to Woodhull, EDP Central?
Yep, been to Woodhull. Yep. Bushwick.
Woodhull, we called it Woodhull or Woodkill. We had great nicknames for the hospitals because they were so bad, folks.
Back then, but now there's some of them like Brookdale as a #1 trauma center now. I mean, it's amazing the turnarounds that they did because, you know, and a lot of times with those hospitals, I learned because Brookdale was infamous for being bad at the time back in the 1990s.
Sure.
Infamous.
Yep.
But when I had asked, there was one of the administrators, and I was talking. I said, "How did this turnaround happen?" And they said, because it was right in the middle of Brownsville, 7-3 precinct, which is a 1 square mile precinct where you had 100 homicides a year in 1 square mile.
Yeah.
And you had the 7-5 right next door, which was like off the charts, 300,
Sure.
but it was much bigger. But anyway, to make a long story short, right after the Gulf War, they had hired a lot of the surgeons from the Army and the medics and the Marines, and it was like that meatball surgery because all these gunshot wounds, and all of a sudden, you know, survival rates started going through the roof because these guys and girls that were out in the field with the gunshot victims, you know, in the desert. They were now plying their trade in a sanitized environment in the hospital, and they saw these things go through the roof. We have a question here just for me. You have a couple more minutes you can hang out, Mike?
No, I'm just kidding. Go ahead.
It says, do you think he just stopped and not done anything all these years? No, I don't, just me. I think there's that 12 to 13 year gap from the time they end the searches in 2011 in Gilgo to when he was arrested in July 2023. However, that time frame comes out to 12 years, 12 and a half years, 11 and a half years, whatever that is. I do not think he stopped. I think he might have stopped for a little while after 2011 because he kind of get spooked and then realized that this was not going anywhere towards him. And I think that's when we start seeing those Google searches. So yes, the question comes down to is, did he find a new location to place his victims? And if so, where was that? And that's why I had said Massapequa Park. But there are several locations still on Long Island that he could have used.
Simi says, I'm ready to troll other chats. I don't troll other chats. Maybe I do.
You know, it's been really good. So, Mike, we're topped off here. We're finishing up this stream, 716. We're setting new records. Yesterday, we set a record at the total live streams of over 1,000 people watching at one time. And when you think about it, we have 11,000 subscribers. 1,000 is a lot, right? So that's we're kind of
A thousand is a lot. And poor Dave, it froze on him for like 30 seconds. He's looking at the camera like, doo, 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 doo. Oh my
yeah.
God.
That was pretty funny. And I actually, when I was trying to get back in, I was like, oh my God, I know Dave is sitting there like just what he got. But CH just said almost 12,000 now. I have to take a look. And
wow. Awesome.
So listen, folks, it's because of you guys that make all this possible. The donors, the mods. I want to thank you guys all so much, and the subscribers and the chats. I mean, listen, just watching the videos, commenting, hanging out with us. We try to break it up with a little levity here and there. Mike with his stories, this and that, just try to get through some of these tough stories. It's not that we're insensitive. It's just that we're trying to use it as defense mechanisms, not only for ourselves, but for you guys also, just to break up some of the real terrible things that happen in this world. So Mike will be back next Friday for roll call. We have this Sunday, Mike, I have a premiere that's going to drop at 1 o'clock. I'm going to be in the chat with everybody. It's a 1 o'clock premiere about the Doan Gang, which is a Doylestown, Plumstead gang that was from the Revolutionary War. But these were the original outlaws. These were the original outlaws, not out west, right there in Doylestown and Plumstead. And it's actually a pretty cool video. So we're doing that on Sunday at 1 p.m., premiering it live, but I will not be speaking in it. I've already filmed it, and I'll be in the chat.
And if Proctor testifies on Monday, be ready for that.
Yep, be ready. So we're going to keep an eye out for that. Everybody, you have a great weekend, and we will see you soon. Hopefully, we'll see you Sunday at 1 p.m. and possibly on Monday. We'll see what happens. It'll all depend on what's going on. And of course, if Mike is available. If not, I will be doing something. All right, guys. Have a great day. Mike, you hang out 1 second. Everybody else,